Hello, my name is Dieter Loosemore, and you join me for a bit of an impromptu style of video, not one I've really done before. I'm doing this because I spent the whole of yesterday recording, and like an idiot got to the end of like 5 videos and realized in my not very awakeness I hadn't tested the microphone, and so I'd recorded no sound. So to console myself, I decided to grab off the shelf Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. This has arrived a couple of weeks ago. This is all the rage. I think it's already top 10 or so on Board Game Geek, despite its parent game Gloomhaven being number 1. I don't know if I would differentiate between the two, so I'm going to do a little something that I kind of semi-stealing from No Pun Included, where sometimes Efka talks about a game, but really to talk about a subject. And so this is just kind of off the cuff. I haven't prepared anything particularly, but it's going to be a mixture of first impressions of Jaws of the Lion, and to kind of lead then into a little bit of I don't know if a shift is the right word, but I'll use the word for the sake of it for now. A shift kind of in my gaming genres that's happened in the last year or so. So Jaws of the Lion is a much smaller, although physically it's still pretty flipping big, version of, not even version, it's a standalone thing within the Gloomhaven world, still set in the city of Gloomhaven, and you're off doing stuff. But it's much smaller in scope. So there's no ongoing campaign in the sense of, in the original one, you could retire characters once they reached a certain thing and get new people and explore this wild, huge map. Whereas this is much smaller, you use the same characters throughout, and it's only about 20-25 missions, I think. And I had Gloomhaven a year ago, 2 years ago, and played it a couple of times, enjoyed the system. It is a wonderful game, and I get why people like it, but it was so overwhelming. There's so much of it, even pulling out all the map and everything was huge. Just a huge task, and it barely fit in this box that was just a monster brick. So it moved on. It just wasn't going to get the play that something like that deserves, and it's got like over 100 missions in it, so it's a huge game. And so this came out last year, and it's something that I was looking at and decided. I'd sold a couple of other games. I was like, cool, I've got a little bit of money, let's give it a go. Found it cheapish for within its normal price range, picked it up. And so today, to console myself, I picked it up. I posted on Instagram that this is what I was going to do, and a few people got in touch saying, no tips, just start playing. The guide really walks you through it. It's really helpful, and I've seen this in a few reviews. So my thoughts so far: I have finished the first 2 scenarios. The first, and they really felt like one. They were a small narrative within themselves. It's the same enemy, just slightly developed from one to the other. And having played Gloomhaven and seen all this massive stuff and not been able to get my head around it, what it does in the first 5 missions, it teaches you the game essentially. And really helpfully, I'm going to just grab, here we go. This is the instruction manual. It's just the Learn to Play guide, and it just walks you through. Now turn to this page, and now, excuse my microphone there. In the first scenario, this is how you're going to do it. This is what you're going to do. This is what everything means. This is what every symbol means. Grab these cards. Don't worry about this for now. We'll come back to that. And then later, yes, remember those things. Cool, grab those now. It's so methodically put out. It kind of answers your questions as you think of them, which is an incredible feat. And so then the first one was super simple. Don't worry about the enemy. They just have these stats. Do that. Cool. Focus on learning how the system works, and the card system is so good. I spoke about this when we did our top 100. I did it with my brother, and Gloomhaven came up for me because it is great when you choose 2 cards and you do the top action of one and bottom action of another and choose which of those will be your initiative number, and you only have half the information really, with broken communication with your team as to who's going in what order until you reveal and do all that stuff. So you can kind of plan, you kind of can't. and I'm playing solo, and that's, you play 2 characters, and that's okay. And I actually hold back from what I view as cheating and planning both hands simultaneously. I will complete planning one hand before I start planning the other hand. So that's good, and it works well, and I've tried to choose complementary characters, like an in-your-face melee guy, and then the sitting back supporting healing kind of guy, which is really cool. But it feels like Gloomhaven. It feels like, yes, all the innovations and things that were in there so far that I've seen are still here. The cool way enemy stats are done in those little the card slides, so you only see a certain amount and it tracks all the different enemies of that type, is really clever. The card system, as I say, is really clever, and the first cards that you get have bonus text on them really explaining that's what this thing means, that when you do this it actually means this thing, okay, so that then later on when you get newer cards and more difficult cards, you've kind of built up that base knowledge already. So it is, people are right, it is guiding you through, almost hand-holding, but not in a patronizing way, in a we want you to love this game, here's the best route in. So props to Jaws of the Lion. I've only really come across tutorials like this in digital versions of Through the Ages and Root. They work really well at hand-holding yourself through. But what this kind of led me on to in my thinking is my growing taste for roleplay. And I don't mean I'm going to sit down at, say, at the Thunderbirds game and kind of roleplay any of the characters. I don't mean including that into it. I mean that genre. So at the beginning of the first lockdown back in March 2000, goodness me, we've not been here for 20 years, 2020, last year, I asked a couple of guys from our game group if we wanted to start a D&D campaign, Dungeons and Dragons, and it's not something I'd ever done before. It was actually something I'd kind of backed away from because it felt like a whole different world. But you know, I originally trained as an actor. My degree is in acting. I went to theatre school rather than a university in that sense. And improvising's never been my strong suit. I'm much better at being directed and doing all of that, and so I was really hesitant, but I was also really curious. More and more people I knew were involved in it, and so we've been playing this campaign for, well, nearly a year, in fact. And so the fun of it, and I've started watching Critical Role and things like that, so I'm just getting really interested by the collaborative storytelling thing, which feels so actory to me and quite pretentious, but that's a lot of fun. And so then playing something like this, when I first played Gloomhaven, it was just going in and all the mission goals seemed to be kill the enemies, kill the enemies, kill the enemies, and it's like, oh, there's no story there's no fun. But with this one, I've started reading the text much more closely, started kind of hearing that story much more, so that when I'm playing, and because I'm playing solo and I can bounce my characters off one another, I'm more able to kind of pull that out. And I wonder for you whether that's something that you do instinctively and you've been doing this all along, or it's not something you do and you're quite actually sat back and the world is kind of abstracted and it is just the mechanisms. Typically when you watch my reviews or if you go through our top 100, my stance is much more on I like clean mechanisms that interlock beautifully, like crunchy ideas within the Euro style gaming. That's exactly what I love. But suddenly here's some Euro mechanisms, it's optimization and whatnot with intricate card play and resources and those kinds of things, but in a dungeon crawl and in this immersive narrative driven world. And once this is done, it's done. I mean, you can reset it and you can replay it, but I'm not doing the legacy aspects. I'm not adding stickers. I'm writing on the sheet of paper, but it gives you multiple copies of it. So if I want to play this with other people another time, I can, and kind of go through it again with them. Same as Rise of Fenris with Scythe, the campaign expansion that came out. It was just fun kind of continuing that story through. And so I've just noticed a development in my taste, and I wonder just where do you stand on this? I know my brother Rick, if you watched our videos, wouldn't care for this sort of thing at all. Role playing in that sense isn't his bag at all, and I wouldn't have thought it mine a couple of years ago. But as I say, over the last year, doing more of this, going from the third person to the first person in our D&D games, it seems to be something I'm enjoying more. And so do you have any suggestions of kind of those kind of crossover style games that work, that might be something to check out? I don't know. This wasn't really a planned video. This was just me reflecting on the day's events from yesterday. So any comments, stick them down below. But thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. Do subscribe to the channel if you want to see my proper content. You can see all the stuff on there, and if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified when new stuff comes out. If you want to see all my all the things that I get wrong and all the things that I'm playing and all of that kind of stuff, do find me on social media. Very handsy today. Just search Win Some Lose More on the usual platforms, you'll find me. I hope you do join me for the next one. I've been Dieter for Win Some Lose More. Thank you. Bye.